Hey everyone, it's me, Dr. Binning. In this video, I'm going to walk you through a really amazing case study that came into our clinic, and I wanted to highlight some of the benefits that you may see by using our approach. One of the most common questions I receive in our clinic is, how does the work you do differ than the work I may have done already in the past, either through my family doctor or working with some other health practitioners? And so hopefully in this case study, in this short video, you'll be able to see how different this process can actually be and how it may be the solution for you to get your health back on track so that you can live your best life. So let's get into it. Now, this case study is on a patient who had chronic digestive complaints. So I wanted to give you some background info on digestive problems. So these can be some of the most common complaints a doctor will receive in their office. Okay, they affect 60 to 70 million people in the U.S. every year and account for about 4.6 million hospitalizations per year and about 250,000 deaths per year. Now, the frustrating thing about digestive complaints is it can often create symptoms that show up or manifest in different organ systems, not actually in the gut. So I'll give you an example. One way this can happen is when people who are sensitive to gluten are given the worst information they can possibly get is, you don't have any gut symptoms, so you don't have to worry, eat whatever you want. And when you look at the body of research that exists, 75% of the research that's done on gluten sensitivity or how gluten impacts our health is all related to brain function, right? And so what you see is it's kind of just been put into this box that gluten goes along with gut problems when in actuality it should be gluten goes along with brain problems. Now, brain problems, you might wonder, well, what are those things? Well, think of depression, anxiety, ADD, all these things that are so commonplace amongst not just adult populations, but also our children, okay? So another frustrating thing about digestive complaints is because they're so complicated, it can take decades to diagnose you. And so what that means is a long period of suffering, and that'll be highlighted in this case. Now, another thing is that gut issues are often the gateway to many other illnesses. In particular, you'll see this pattern with people who have autoimmune diseases, okay? Now, one thing I wanted to share with you when it comes to functional medicine is this philosophy that the root cause of most illnesses can be traced back to the gut. So we always want to investigate what's going on in your gut, whether you have gut symptoms or not, okay? So you always want to make sure you're looking for what can be improved in the health level of your gut, okay? Now, this is Mr. C. This is the patient whose case study we're going to go through. I want to walk you through a little bit of his history and his life. First of all, he was a father, a husband, and an entrepreneur. He'd been suffering with digestive complaints of pain, cramping, chronic diarrhea for 16 years. Now, just listing those complaints doesn't really tell you the impact this had on his life, so I'll share a little story. But imagine this scenario where you go out with your wife to eat out at a restaurant, and if your seating or your table where you're going to be seated to eat isn't close enough to the bathroom that you would actually choose to leave and find another place to eat, or wait until that opportunity arises, or cancel the whole evening. Now, this is the level of impact this was having on this individual's life. They were choosing to, live through this fear of, could I have another bowel movement? Could it come at any given time? And will it cause me an accident, so-called accident, in a public place where it would be really, really embarrassing? So their whole life became planned or strategized around avoiding this problem. So you can see and you can almost feel the level of fear that was building up in this individual's life, right? So he suffered with increased frequency and urgency of bowel movements. His energy became depleted. So he started showing up for work, and yeah, he was at work, but wasn't really motivated to get anything more than what he had to do to get done. He was also diagnosed with IBS. He was given prescriptions, which never helped him feel any better. And ultimately, it just led to him feeling more and more frustrated as he could never get a clear answer or a solution to his problems. So this is a quote from Mr. C. And what he says is 16 years ago, I was diagnosed with IBS, was handed a prescription and sent on my way with no direction or help. I wasn't doing well at all with my huge amounts of stress. I felt like my health was crumbling all around me. Nothing helped and nowhere to turn. I continued to deal with the physical and mental pain to day to day pain. I continued to deal with the physical and mental pain day to day as it turned into normalcy. Now you can hear the struggle and the pain in his voice, and it doesn't sound fun. What you get a sense of is that this has just become his everyday normal existence was to suffer. And that's not a very kind, energetic, warm, loving place to be in. So despite all his doctor visits, specialist visits, he was still no closer to a solution. And this is what led him to reach out to us. And so enter the Functional Health Institute. And what we essentially did was we first of all listened to him and listened to his story. And then what we decided was we would leave no stone unturned. Now what I'm going to do is walk you through some of the things we discovered about Mr. C based on one of the first tests we ran on him. Now these are just snapshots of very specific components of a stool test we ran on him. So this first box here, which you see here, is a little snapshot of his microbiome. So the bacteria in his gut that contribute to him being healthy. And what you see is a pattern of everything kind of pushed towards the low side. Now, what you have to understand about health is your body craves balance. It wants everything to be balanced, not too little, not too much. So no extremes on either side. But what we have to understand here is this has an impact on his health. Then we see down here he has some overgrowths of bacteria that can also impact his health, okay, in a negative way. Particularly, you see this one here, Bacillus and Morganella. These can make him make the level of gut health that he has go down significantly. Now, most importantly, here you see some markers that tell us about his gut function. Now, the first thing we want to see here, or the first thing we want to talk about, is he had a lot of blood in his stool. And this is not a good situation at all. But this wasn't even being looked at despite the blood being in his stool. Now, the next marker here tells us how active his immune system is. And if you look here, it's overactive. That's not necessarily a bad thing. What it's telling us is his body's trying to fight off whatever is causing some of his problems. Then the second one here under immune response, this is one of 16 markers to tell us if he's reacting to gluten. And this is as close as to high as you can possibly get. So he's having a reaction, and maybe what we're seeing here is that his reaction or his immune system is responding to what he's eating, okay? Now the next one is really, really crucial, and I'm going to give you some background on why this is crucial. Number one, this calprotectin is a marker for inflammation, gut inflammation in particular. The first thing you have to understand is this marker does not go up if someone has IBS. So his diagnosis that he had received and the treatment he had received wasn't the correct thing for him to do because he actually is down more the line of Crohn's and colitis, okay? Now look at how high this is. He's almost 10 times the limit for how much inflammation you should have. Now, why is this a problem? This is a problem because if you keep this level of inflammation for a long, long time and it becomes chronic, it's going to lead to some other type of illness, either an autoimmune disease or even further down the line, something like cancer. And now this is the power in learning what tests to run and when to do them, is because we can avoid this future if we can change these things, okay? Now, the last marker here is a marker called zonulin, and that tells us his gut is leaky. So leaky gut is when your foods and different bacteria and things that should be staying in your gut environment are getting into your blood and causing an immune reaction, and that might be stimulating his immune system as well, okay? So these are all very, very important pieces of information that he had no access to before because no one did the right test. So what we did first is followed these steps. The first thing we wanted to do is discover the uniqueness of the case and individual. So we reviewed his history and his previous lab tests to determine what may have been done and what was maybe missed or overlooked. Then we would determine what lifestyle factors might be contributing to his illness. And this was all based off his history and him telling us about his whole life. Okay. Then the second thing we did is we said we're going to test and not guess anymore. And so what we did was we started with a stool test to determine what type of microbiomes, what his microbiome health is like, the presence of any stealth infections, parasites, worms, gut inflammation, if he had gluten sensitivity and leaky gut. And I already shared the results with you based on that, or some of the results, and you can see he had a lot going on that he didn't even know was there. Now, then we implemented a gluten and dairy-free diet. We taught him how to stimulate his digestive tract to function. We started to build resilience to stress, because one of the things that was prevalent in his history was he had a very, very stressful life, and that was always going to cause an impact in his life. And actually, if you really think about it, nobody can really heal if they're still living in a state of stress, meaning fight or flight all the time, because that scenario stimulates to your body to kickstart survival mode, not healing mode. Okay, so this was really important that we addressed his ability to respond to stress in an appropriate manner. We also wanted him to develop a deeper, more restful sleep, because this is when you heal. And so if he's not sleeping, he's got no chance in getting better. Then we also worked on some mindset and self-love strategies to help him grow and become a better person, and to develop his relationship with himself and the people he cared about. Then the third thing we did was we put all this to action, and then we created custom supplement and antimicrobial protocols to address the findings we found on his stool test. And what we wanted to do was address the poor levels of bacteria in his microbiome, get rid of some of these opportunistic bacteria that had overgrown and were causing issues. We wanted to get his inflammation down by addressing the root cause of his inflammation and not just taking something like an anti-inflammatory. And we wanted to heal his gut so it wasn't leaky anymore. And so what I'll do is I'll share the second stool test we ran after we put these protocols in place. So here we go. We want to retest and determine the effectiveness of his protocol. And here's his information based on his retesting. Now what you see here is under his normal flora of bacteria, it's getting more balanced, right? There's not as many things that are low. Some of them weren't even showing up at all on the first time, but we see better balance. Then when we see under opportunistic bacteria, most of the red is gone, okay? And that is great, because what are we seeing? We're pushing these things back to health. Now, in the most important part here, where we see these markers for gut inflammation, is his blood gone. There's no more microscopic blood in his stool at all, okay? So the source of the bleeding has dissipated, it's gone away, it's healed. Now, when we look at his immune system, the first marker here, is perfectly where we want it to be. It's not overactive, it's not underactive, it's doing its job the way it should. And when you look at the next marker here that tells us about his reaction to gluten, or one component of gluten, what we see is that's gone down as well. So he's avoiding it, he's doing a good job of not eating it, his exposure to it has decreased, and that might be part of why his immune system's coming back down to normal. But most importantly, what we see here is under inflammation, where he was almost 10 times the limit. Look at what we've got it down to, double digits, 14, from over 1,000 to 14. Now, what did I say is really important about this is that if you keep this level of chronic inflammation up this high, it's going to present one day as some type of illness, either an autoimmune disease, more something like Crohn's, colitis, or even colon cancer. And this is what we want to avoid. And to avoid it, we have to have this information at the start of the journey. And then the other thing we saw here is his marker for leaky gut had fallen back within the range of normal. So we'd done amazing work, or actually Mr. C had done amazing work, because all I did was teach him what he had to do, and then he had to follow through in his life every single day to make this happen. Now, what I hope you see is now that living your best life requires you to be healthy. And here's some of the things that Mr. C was able to achieve. So his digestive system, symptoms of pain, cramping, bloating, and uncontrolled bowel movements, remember the fear of how close do I have to be to the bathroom? All gone. He doesn't have those fears anymore. His energy levels dramatically improved, as did his motivation. So what that led to is he was able to take on more work and be more productive at work. Even in times of COVID, he was able to do more, and he had to because they had to let people go because of the way they had to restructure their business. So his reactions to foods also decreased, his brain fog had disappeared, and he had no blood in his stool. Now, here's some advice from Mr. C, and he left this as a message to us. So I'm going to read this for you. He says, "This approach doesn't have any comparison to anything I knew was possible. There's a big difference between functional medicine and modern medicine. Functional medicine is the way all doctors should practice, from understanding the body to digging deep to find the root causes of one or more complex illnesses to doing the right tests to get the right answers. Over the year or so, I have learned so much more than I would have ever imagined I would have about my body and mind and how they work together. This is one big rabbit hole. For anyone in the same position I was in, it's never too late to change the way you feel about yourself in every or any aspect of your life. Feeling the way you feel right now is not a healthy way to live, physically or mentally. It's not going to be easy, but I guarantee it'll be well worth it in the end." So this turnaround happened in a very quick time. And what I wanted to leave you with is that this isn't just possible for one person. This is possible for any one of you who's looking to make strategic changes to actually get your health back on track and get your life back on track. Now, what I wanted to leave you with is that the opportunity to have a free discovery call with me, all you have to do is go to the link that's provided in this slide, and you'll be able to book a free 15-minute discovery call with me. And this will allow me to hear your story, give you a little bit of insight into what our approach might be. And most importantly, we want to make sure that if you're going to work with us, that it's actually the right thing for you. Okay? So if you want to claim your life and get your health back on track, just go to this link, reach out to me, and we'll start you on the process with this free discovery call. There's no obligation, there's no cost to it. And what I hope to teach you in this call is that there may be an approach that is right for you, even if you think you've tried everything. So have an amazing day. I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.